So, patron player ratings and hammer of the year. My name's Stephen, and for the last couple of seasons I've been doing the player ratings, or compiling the everybody's patron scores of the players. And I'm going to talk to you about the hammer of the year and how I calculated it. I'm assuming that most, if not all of you, will be familiar with this scale. So after every match, patrons are asked to rate the West Ham players on this scale. So essentially at the start of your time, or at the start of the player's time on the pitch, a player will probably be rated as a 5 for putting on his boots and shirt and perhaps taking off his watch. Thereafter, what he does on the pitch determines whether he stays at a 5 or increases or decreases his score. So even if you come on as a substitute with 5 minutes to go, you're probably going to get a 5 unless you score the winning goal or give an own goal away. After every match, I look at the scores of all the people who've rated players and feed back the patron averages whilst Gio and Gonzo are videoing their show. I then allow a further about 24 hours or so for stragglers to add their results and put up the patron averages final results, which include Gio and Gonzo's results, on the web page where the ratings video is published. I'm going to do it in the future, probably on the new patron chat patron chat sites as well. And then later on, I'll go back and have a look at any other stragglers like Jay, who tends to put in some results a little bit later. And I will use them to calculate the patron hammer of the year. I'm going to show you some graphs and some figures, and some of you may want to peruse them for a little bit longer. So I'll put it up in the Hammers Chat Communities group on Patreon. I'll also warn you when I'm moving on to the next slide. So if you want, you can pause the video whilst you look at the graph or examine some figures. You may also notice me changing clothes between some of the slides on the video, because I have recorded some of the slides prior to the last game of the season. Okay. Let's start by looking at how we as a group did with the ratings. In total, we got over 2,300 sets of ratings throughout the season. The average number of ratings per game was 56.4, and that ranged from 34 for the Brighton home match to 87 for the Palace away match. 10 patrons completed ratings for all 41 games, and 85% of games, so 35 out of the 41, were completed by 19 patrons, and that was the cutoff to receive a personalised breakdowns at the end of the season, and I'll get around to that at the end of this video. A red is a loss, a green is a win, a blue is a draw, the purple splodge is Potter's first game, so the cup game away at Villa. Over the next few slides, I'm going to show you various outcomes from ratings and how I calculated hammer of the year. If there are any other things you want to know, let me know in the comments, and I'll extract data if I can and let you know. So I'm about to move on. Using all of these ratings, how should we calculate the hammer of the year? Well, there are a number of different ways in which you could do that. There's always a hammer of the match after each game, so the player with the highest patron average. And after every match, you might notice that I put a running table of who has the most amount of matches. The hammer of the year could be the player who's got the most West Ham man of the matches, but that player might have been a pile of crock in all the other matches that they played in. So there's no real consistent good performances throughout the season. It could be the person who's got the highest raw patron average over games they've played in the season. but that could give someone who's only featured in 1 or 2 matches the Hammer of the Year if they got a high mark in those games. That doesn't make much sense to me. What I've done, and I've taken into account who's got the highest rating if you take the amount of time on the pitch into account, and I've used that, but for transparency I've included the other methods for you. Right, man of the matches. For those of you following along during the season, this table is of no surprise to you. I think the most striking thing, I suppose, is Somerville. He only played a quarter of the total season minutes, but got more man of the matches than Bowen. The other thing, Fulkrug, he only played about 12-13% of the playing time, but still got 3 man of the matches. In total, there are 15 different players. There was a man of the match that was really joint. Same ratings for 2 players to 3 decimal places. That was Brentford at home with Scarles and Areola. If you want to take this metric as the Hammer of the Year, then Wan-Bissaka is your man. If you'd rather rely on average game ratings, then, well, Wan-Bissaka's still your man, because he has the highest average rating over the season, scoring higher than Bowen, than Somerville, Fabianski, Kudos, etc., etc., etc. Now, I have incorporated the managers for interest, but I'm not really going to speak about them. Oh God, you could spend a day speaking about that, couldn't you? But obviously you're free to comment and discuss them if you would like to do so. The ratings for them actually tended to vary both between matches and within patrons as well. Patrons were quite divided over a few of the games. I'm about to move on to show you the actual figures, so if you want to pause the video, feel free to do so. Have a look at this graph and take it in. These are the figures then from the previous graph about average ratings throughout the season. You'll notice that it's quite close in various areas, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th, which highlights what Gio was saying. Towards the end of the season, there were a few changes to various positions. In actual fact, Irving, Emerson and Rodriguez, although the same mark is there, Irving's got a higher mark on the 3rd decimal place than Emerson and Rodriguez, etc. Wan-Bissaka's your man, and what a season he has had. I'm going to leave these figures for a couple of seconds, but pause them, have a look at them, and see what you think. We shall move on to looking at how else you can calculate Patron Hammer of the Year in a method that I think is a little bit better. As a bit of an aside, there are other interesting things that you can do with all these ratings. Well, I thought they were interesting. With some caveats, mainly looking at players who've played more than a third of the playing time available. I looked at who has the most consistent average patient ratings from game to game, and that was Emerson. His scores didn't vary too much from 5.2. Similarly, I looked at whose game average varied the most over the season, and that was perhaps also unsurprisingly Paqueta. You may recall he certainly had some variation in his performances. Also, I looked at who we as patrons gave similar marks to in the games that they played. Over the season, that was Areola. Despite his many differences in hairstyles, he gave a performance that we all rated quite similarly. The player who we disagreed most about in relation to his ratings was Kudos. A few other interesting things. If you look at over the whole season, averaging all players' ratings from all the patrons who gave ratings, the average for the players, and this doesn't include the managers, for the average for all the players over the whole season is 5.38, so 5.4. If you look at the matches with the highest or lowest overall player average for that match, the one with the highest player averages is Newcastle away with 7.2, and the worst one was Chelsea at home with a player average of 4.2. Looking at individual players, the player with the highest rating in any match over the season was from our second match of the season away at Palace. Kilman scored an 8.7 average. The player with the lowest average in any match was that terrible foul by Alvarez against Forest. For that match, he got a 1.8. So moving away from that, let's look at how we can incorporate the time that an individual has played into the player ratings so that we can get a better idea of how much a player has contributed to West Ham's season. First thing to do is to go back to the rating scale. So 5 is a average performance, nothing good, nothing bad. Anything above 5 is good. Anything below 5 is poor. Then you got to look at how much time a player's had on the pitch and work out a playing factor that indicates the proportion of the playing season that someone has represented West Ham for. So that would range for 0 from clean sheet Wes to 1 if you played all the time available. And Kilman's got a playing factor of over 0.95 because he's played most of the matches and for most of the time. Now you've got to incorporate that into the average season ratings. So I did that by looking at the amount someone is away from a rating of 5. So for instance, if the average was 6, this would be +1. 6 minus 5 is 1. If the average rating was 4, it would be -1. Then I multiplied that by the playing factor to get a figure. So if the playing factor was 0.5, so you played half the available minutes throughout the season, and you had a rating of 6, you've got plus 0.5. So 6 minus 5 is 1, times it by the playing factor 0.5, you get 0.5. Then you add that figure to 5, which is the average performance. So his overall season score would be 5 plus 0.5, 5.5. Complicated? Yes, a bit, but fair? I definitely think so. So the player with the higher rating, who has played for a long time, would end up above someone with the same season average score who has played less time. I hope that makes some sort of sense. So here are the playing factors that I spoke about. Remember, they're calculated by taking the minutes that the player played for West Ham throughout the season, divide that by the total minutes that West Ham played throughout the season. I mentioned Kilman had more than 95% of the time on the pitch, 98% actually throughout the season, so his playing factor was 0.98. Fodringham didn't get any time. Casey did get a minute. Can you remember which game it was? Bournemouth away. Patrons rated him 5.3 for that match, so the extra 0.3 was for him getting his debut. Sentimental reasons, I love it. Other things, I mean, Guilherme didn't get much time at all on the pitch throughout the season. In fact, Irving got a few more minutes than him, which is interesting. Apart from that, I'm about to move on, so if you want to take a look at it a bit further, please pause it. Incorporating those playing factors into the raw average season ratings for players gives you this lovely little graph. So in all of the 3 methods of calculating the Hammer of the Year, so number of man of the matches, raw average ratings, and average game ratings, taking into account time played on the pitch, Aaron Wan-Bissaka comes top. I'm not going to speak too much about this, but they're the ratings, and that's the graph. If you want to look at it a bit more, please pause the video. Next slide will be looking at the actual figures. So there you are. I think the main changes, to me anyway, from this table compared to the raw average game rating table, Kilman's increased his ratings from 9th to 4th, and that's because he played most of the time and he scored a reasonably good score in the raw average rating tables. Somerville's dropped from 3rd to 10th because he didn't get that much game time, despite his many man of the matches. He didn't play for that long throughout the season. Scars was dropped from 6th to 12th, and Casey is dropped from 15th to 23rd for his 1 minute of the season. Figures are there. Have a look at them and see what you think. So there we are. Congratulations to Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who's won the coveted title of Hammer's Chat Patron Hammer of the Year. But also thanks to all of you for submitting your ratings. It's a strange hobby for me, I know, inputting all your ratings, but I enjoy calculating the figures, looking at the results, and reading the game reviews from people like Andy and David, who always adds a literary slant that reminds me that I do need to read a little bit more. Bear with me whilst I get on to giving personalised results for those of you who've given ratings for 35 or more out of the 41 matches. I'd made a decision at the beginning of the season that if you inputted more than 85% of matches, then you need to get something back to reward you. Also, it doesn't muck up the playing factor scores too much and the kind of statistical I suppose significance of your ratings. In the comments, I'll put up the screen names of those who I have inputted ratings for 35 or more games for. If your name isn't there and you think you have inputted enough sets of marks, either drop a comment down in reply or email me. And email me, the email address is there, hchatplayers@btinternet.com. If your screen name is there, email me to get your season results and I'll send them back to you, or ask for them in the comments and I'll put them up in a reply. Okay, thanks ever so much. Cheers. Hope you enjoyed it. These are the patrons who I've got ratings for 35 or more matches for. Those of you who are starred, you have completed all the matches throughout the season. Thank you so much. I do feel a bit like a teacher or a parent. Not that there's anything wrong with being a teacher or a parent, but if you are not on that list and you think you've completed 35 or more games, please contact me and we will look at the games that I haven't got. Okay, thank you. Bye.